Hello, hi. So I'm back for my recap of Lovecraft Country. I guess recap, predictions, themes that I'm noticing, all of that good stuff. So I just watched episode 4, which was called History of Violence. HBO Max released it a little early, I guess because of the holiday weekend. I don't know. I like for them to keep doing that. That was great. But they released it early, so of course I kind of hopped on and gave it a watch. And this episode was just what I thought, that I said with the last recap. They were giving us Indiana Jones, any of the various initial ones. But so just to kind of start backwards and come forward, in episode 3, we we saw Letty have her moment of kind of coming into who she really wants to be with the house, and calling the ancestors, which I still think that she might have some skills of being able to call up the ancestors, and I still think that that might come back around, so we'll see. This particular episode, that wasn't an element, but I think that might come back up. Nonetheless, she did that. Things kind of ended much better, where the home kind of became a beacon of what she was wanting it to be, and she was essentially inspired or pushed into it by her sister, kind of calling her out. So I thought that was dope. It was a great episode, but we definitely saw that Montrose, Letty, and Atticus were going to go on a little adventure in episode 4. We didn't see, though, which we saw at the beginning of this episode, or really once they began their adventure, was that Hippolyta and Diana will be with them. And so I like how they are part of their storyline, but not. So it's like you have Letty and Atticus, and now Montrose is kind of, I guess, the patriarch of everything, which we'll get to him in a second, having their own kind of adventure. They're doing their own research and trying to figure out what's going on and how to solve, how to keep them safe, how to figure out what's going on with the sons of Adam and the Dawn of Light. Was it Dawn of Light? I'm looking at my notes because me and names are not always. It's Order of Ancient Dawn. The Sons of Adam and the Order of Ancient Dawn, and what they're up to and how to protect themselves and how to all of that stuff. So they're having that, but then you have Hippolyta and Diana. They're having their own journey, and so we start off the episode with old girl Christina. Of course, she's in the mix, and so now we get some answers to our questions about that house, and maybe Christina's motivations for why she basically bought Letty the house. And so we find out that there is something in the house. So they're definitely using, Letty. They're like, she is definitely trying to puppet the situation. The problem is that trying to puppet Letty and Atticus and even Montrose is like hurting kittens. You can't puppet them because they are too willful in their own kind of making sure that they're taken care of and that their family and their people are taken care of. And so you can't just kind of move them around because they're also very aware that something is happening that they don't really know what's going on, but it doesn't, their best interests are not at heart. So she's still moving pieces for sure. But definitely realizing how, I can see her becoming frustrated in future episodes with trying to get them to be in the position where she wants them to be, which makes sense why the other guy, whose name I don't remember, it didn't even know if I wrote that down, who kind of answered the door in the first episode, who definitely wasn't a butler, but he gives me some kind of assistant henchman type of vibe. Like he is her person, her right hand person, but he's the hammer. So when she needs to have somebody come in and do the dirty work, he will do the dirty work, and whatever that means. So, and that's kind of starting to happen. But before I mention him, just going back, so she shows up we find out that we found out at the end of episode 3 that she was the one who bought the house for Letty, or gave her the money and empowered her to buy that particular house. Just she made that happen. But we also see that what she's looking for is not in the house anymore, because Hippolyta has it, because she found it and somehow it spoke to her. And so I'm definitely interested and gonna do some digging around to learn about was Hiram's Ori, which is the model of the solar system, which I thought was really cool and dope. I was like, wow, that's a really cool thing. And so it's not even in the house, which is funnily enough. So I definitely see, like I said in the very beginning, Hippolyta is going to get pulled into this in a very meaningful way, and her knowledge and expertise in the solar system and astronomy is going to be valuable and important. I'm seeing even more so now after this episode. So of course, she's looking for that. It's not there. She thinks it's there, but they've spelled the house, so she can't just come in, which is fantastic. So they are, maintaining some element of control, but of course they find out that they have to now travel to Boston to go to this museum to get they're trying to get Adam's pages. And so that is what Christina is looking for, Adam's pages, the rest of them, so that she can decode them and find out what she needs to find out about the Order of the Ancient Dawn. So they're trying to be ahead of her and, trying to actually solve that. And so we have this happening. But while that's happening, and we have Montrose, who is obviously just as smart as his brother. He seems to definitely have more anger about things, and definitely seems to have some darkness, or not necessarily darkness. It just looks shady. Something about Montrose gives me shady. I don't know what it is, in spite of what happens at the end of this episode, which I'll mention shortly. Something about his decisions are very shady. Because yes, George gave him that book, but he gave him that book and told him to give it to Atticus. He didn't say read it and burn it. So the fact that at the very beginning he's reading this and then he burns it, it's like, what is he trying to hide? So he's clearly trying to hide something, but he is going along with them because he does love and care about Atticus and doesn't want him to get killed. He doesn't want him to, but I also think he doesn't want him to find the truth. And you can be much closer and sabotage somebody right next to them, sometimes easier than sabotaging them from afar. So you have two forces working against Atticus and Letty, essentially trying to find these answers. One is Montrose, and then the other is Christina. Christina is trying to find it for herself. Montrose, we haven't figured that out yet. But he's with them on the journey. Hippolyta and Diana also go, and they're off to Boston. And then also Tree, the dude Tree, who I don't know where he's gonna come into play here, but he keeps popping up, which gives me some type of indication that he's going to be in the mix in some way. I'm just not sure how. But none of the characters in this series seem inconsequential. Everyone seems to have some type of purpose. And so it's very interesting just kind of seeing how all the characters pop up. Of course, we've seen the kids again, Bobo, which we found out, which I found out last week after kind of learning about some of the historical Easter eggs, that was, I think Emmett Till's nickname was Bobo. Sorry, let me check. Yes, I have notes here. I have notes, serious. That Emmett Till, so the boy that they call Bobo, that was Emmett Till's nickname. So Emmett Till is still in here. So I think that I'm curious if what happened to him in real life is going to happen on the show, and if that's going to be in any way a part of the storyline. I think that'll be interesting to see, because he keeps popping up. This is the second time, so he's definitely a good friend of Diana's. But I just keep seeing him. The Ouija board spoke to him. He's in this episode. It's very interesting. Like I said, I don't feel like characters in this series so far, none of them seem inconsequential or just happenstance or just filler characters. They all seem to play some type of a role in either the larger story that's happening or making the historical connections, but that still kind of play into the larger story. So like in episode 3 with Letty, and her sister was like, you let all of your friends who are artists come stay here, but it was like the activists of that time. So you have like the James Baldwin, and they were talking about Martin Luther King, who, as I now know after last week, that his name originally was Michael. So it is that. So yeah, they're kind of players in the background, but they have historical significance. So everyone seems to be significant in some way. So with that, Tree is also with him. He kind of comes up last minute. He has a lady in Philly. He's trying to get to her, so he catches a ride to Boston. But they're there, and they have to break into the museum. So they break into the museum, and then this is where it gets real Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, which I was a complete fan of. And they make their way, the caves, the water, the booby traps, the special codes, all of that was pretty cool and dope. But then, as a fan, this kind of spoke to my heart. Goonies is one of my favorite movies that, like, to this day I still watch, like as if I've never seen it before. And that may or may not have been the intention, but the scene where when they walk into the room after they walk through, they're obviously on they're underwater, like a boat or something. They walk past all of these mummies of people kind of in the ship, and then they go up to a higher level of the ship, and it's this woman, she's also a mummy, and she's sitting at a table with papers. And that just gave me all sorts of Goonies, when they found the ship and they found One-Eyed Willie and he was sitting, and if you touch One-Eyed Willie's, like the little section of jewels that he had, it would cause a booby trap. They didn't. The kids, the Goonies didn't do it, but the Fratellis did, and that caused kind of all this chaos and stuff. But in this instance, they were the ones who touched her, and then she kind of reanimated and came to life. And her name was Yahima, and she was a native. She was, because she's like alive, but not. She's a creature. She's been spelled and turned into what we find is later as a siren. But she comes back, she reanimates. She speaks in her tongue of First Nations tongue, but Atticus can understand it. So Atticus is definitely a key for sure, but he's not the only high value player. Letitia still, comes in, and of course she, in a pinch, she is like the one in a pinch that when stuff goes left, she's the one to make it come back right. Like when they almost lost the papers when they're getting in the elevator, which I made a note when I saw the elevator. I was like, elevator to their house, because she saw the body of the neighbor that went missing. And I'm like, so is that house on a portal? Is that what it is? Which would be really cool, which means that house might have things about it that are still yet to be determined, and that house is starting to become its own character. So they have their adventure. They find Yahima, and before I talk about what happens at the very end, we see Ruby, and Ruby has just been crushed because she goes to the department store. She has got her resume already. She is looking fantastic, hair done, makeup, face beat, clothes. She's all the things that she thinks she needs to be. It is peak respectability. But she gets there, and they've hired a Black woman already, and this is definitely giving us kind of some historical education, and showing just kind of in practice when some people act like there can only be one Black person in any given space that's not already with Black people. There can only be one. It's rooted in, this is one of the this is giving you a peek into what is kind of the foundation of that belief, and what's rooted in, where it's like, if there's only there's 100 sales associates at this one really big department store, but they're not gonna, they have their one Black person, they're not gonna have another one. And so, of course, Ruby sees this and she's devastated, rightfully so, because she has done, she's doing everything that society is telling her to do in order to be that appropriate Black woman at this time. And it's just still not working for her, because the systems are designed for it not to, unfortunately. But we see Ruby, and then we see old boy, Christina's henchman, as I'm calling him her henchman. There's something supernatural about him. I'm just not sure what. I don't know what he is yet, like what his connection is to the supernatural, but it's something. And so he shows up. He kind of is buying her drinks and bonding with her, which immediately my flags went off. And I was like, this is not going to end well. This is not the move. But the more she's drinking and she's feeling sad, and he's a nice looking gentleman, and they're apparently vibing to some degree, because what he's either playing a really great role, which I definitely think there's some manipulation happening, or he's beguiled by her. He's interested in her. And so they, as what happens when you're sitting at a bar and you're kind of commiserating with someone who is a person that you would engage with physically, they get back to the house. So here we are. Christina was trying to get into the house. Christina could not get into the house because it had been spelled. Apparently, oh boy does not have the same limitations that Christina has about the house being spelled and getting in, because he was able to walk right in with Ruby and get it on the stairs. Now, he had a very interesting tattoo type of situation, or a tattoo, or it may not have been either some body art. Let's just call it body art. It looked like rams or something. I think that's gonna come back up, and that could definitely be kind of a supernatural connection for him. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but I do know that he was able to get into the house and get it on with Ruby on the stairs. So now he's in the house, but also now he's in Ruby's psyche. He's in her sphere. So he has connected with her in this way, beyond just kind of the physical, like they have some type of connection where now they can get to Ruby, which I think is problematic, because Ruby and Letty aren't close enough for them to have kind of that open dialogue about what's happening. So Letty is not telling Ruby the truth about everything that's going on, because they don't have that type of sisterly rapport. So that basically leaves Ruby open to, if these people decide they want to manipulate her, they kind of can, because she doesn't know what's going on. And so she's not going to have her guard up around these particular people, because first of all, she doesn't even know them, because they haven't been exposed to them. So I think that's going to be an issue. I hope that Ruby doesn't turn into a pawn. I hope she's a strong personality, but she's also very angry right now and very resentful. She's resentful of just society and what it's doing and how it's making her life just more challenging. But she's also resentful of Letty, because Letty seems to not have to deal with the same societal challenges that she does. And so this is a very interesting kind of look into the dynamics of Black women in their relationship, and kind of how you have the one person who feels like they have to maintain respectability and they have to kind of do what society tells them to do, and then you have the other sister who is not, who is kind of the direct opposite of that. But the other sister seems to be thriving because she just bought a new house. She got all this money from their mom, even though now we know that it didn't come from their mom. But it's not like Letty ran to tell Ruby that, because they don't have that rapport. So see, their fractured family is gonna have to be mended in order for them to really see themselves through this challenge that is still yet to be fully named, but it's starting to come into play. And Christine is definitely a big bad, but she's not the only one. But she's definitely part of the big bad in this particular series. So, the thing with Ruby was kind of like, but I get it. She's frustrated. In her mind, she's just blowing off some steam with an attractive white guy who's been hitting on her all night. Like, she's not even thinking, she has no idea what all is at stake and at play here. And I really hope that in the next coming episodes that her and Letty are able to find some type of a common ground and a level of conversation so that they can talk about what's happening. Another person who I need to be brought into the inner circle, and it's just for me, Hippolyta. I need Atticus to talk to Hippolyta and tell her what is happening and tell her, he might just have to tell her the truth. I think he doesn't want to, but she's a purer of heart than Montrose, because now let's get to Montrose. They bought Yahima, they rescued her from the place because she was still, a human being to be saved. And so they saved her because, of course, Atticus is a hero. He's a saver of people, men and women. He saves everyone. But of course, he saved her, and they bring her. And of course, they find they were back to their house because the elevator was to their house. So there's definitely some type of, connection there. And then Montrose kills her. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means that I don't know if Montrose actually was kidnapped per se. I do know he went to Artem, but we have no idea. Like, he had been gone for 2 weeks at the beginning of the first episode. Like, Artie had been gone for 2 weeks. If you notice, it didn't take them that long to drive to Artem. Like, it took them like a day, maybe half a day or so. Like, it took them 2 weeks. He will have definitely gotten there, made it there, and had been there for an extended period of time. So, and he hadn't been, he wasn't locked away for 2 weeks, because he was in still pretty good shape. Because if you've just been locked away for 2 weeks, you would probably be really weak and not being able to get your way out. That wasn't what it was. So something else has happened with him, which he wants to, for whatever reason, stop them. I don't know what. It makes me sad because he has a lot of knowledge and he's giving the knowledge out piecemeal. But then while he gives it, he's like taking it away. So he's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back then, which I think is crazy and unfortunate. But that's also why I think they need to bring Hippolyta into the fold, because Hippolyta can be that person to bring them, keep it moving forward, and be kind of the older, educated person who understands kind of not only the information, but the ins and outs of it and what it looks like in real life. She has that insight and that foresight and can be that guidance for them in a way that Montrose is not going to be, because he's decided he's not. And so I'm very interested to see what happens with him and why he's being a saboteur, because I don't know, but there's more to the story with him than we're getting. Which I was sad that he did that at the very end, because it was like, oh, damn it, Montrose, what is this? So I think that I will say we're still on this hero's journey with Letty and Atticus. I am appreciative and I'm kind of glad that they're starting to cement their relationship more after what happened in the last episode, where he he took her virginity, but he didn't know. He assumed that she was not a virgin for, whatever reason he assumed that. But she told him, I'm glad she told him, so that he knows. And so, maybe we'll get another more appropriate love scene for them in the future, where it's less sex at a party and more, we actually care about each other, because clearly their relationship is not just physical. Obviously they have some energy and a connection. So I think it's cool that we're seeing their relationship start to gel in a way that feels kind of more organic. Like, they're having these situations, they're realizing how much they care about each other, but then they're also kind of butting heads and having to figure that part out as well. So we have that, which I think is cool. But we're definitely, I couldn't tell when I saw the preview for episode 5 what the big scary was. I think it might just be more about kind of manipulation and mind control, because they're definitely about to do a number on Ruby, and I really just hope that Ruby is able to not get sucked in. I really, really hope. I just don't know, because she's so pissed. When people are really pissed at the people that can tell them the truth, but they're just pissed in general, you know, anytime someone presents you with a challenge that you can overcome to prove that you deserve it because you're pissed because basically society and people are telling that you don't, that just kind of sets her up as ripe for being able to be manipulated by Christine and that dude whose name I don't know and is not in my notes. But so I'm excited to see what happens next week. What are your thoughts? Do you think that the house is a portal, or is maybe it just kind of just is connected to just that museum? Or is it possible? I think the house could very likely be connected to other things. You know, they said that there were 3 tunnels in that cave. They went down one. The other 2 tunnels, where do those go? And now that we know they can essentially get there without having to go to the museum in Boston, how is that going to play into it? Because I definitely think it's going to play a factor. That house is now become a character, and let's just see how that house is going to contribute to the story. But do you think that? Let me know your thoughts. If you think that the house is a portal and it'll come back around, or is this just a one-time thing with them in Boston and it's not going to come back around? I'll definitely be looking for, I'm going to be checking out the podcast. So if you're not listening to the Lovecraft Country radio podcast, you should definitely, because it is the ladies who host it, which Shannon and Ashley, I believe that's their names. I forget their last names. One of them, I always forget who was a writer on the show, and then the other one is not, but they're both, they have a lot of great knowledge and deep insight. And so you could definitely learn a lot from them about kind of the inner workings of what people were thinking when they created the show and were telling the story, kind of planning the story. So once you check this video out, you should definitely listen to Lovecraft Radio. I will link it below, as I do in as I've done it in the past, just because it's a really great act tool. And yeah, let's just see. I made some notes about the comet, which I think is cool. I wonder if that's going to circle back around, because she has a comet that she named. Like I said, Hippolyta. I need her. I want to see her journey, and her story is about to take a turn. And at the very end also of this episode, we see her going to Artem. So something's about to happen. She's about to have her own awakening. And I think they're going to need her, because Montrose is shady. And so we're going to need Hippolyta to step into the greatness that she's about to contribute to the story, because I really feel like she's about to contribute something, but we're going to need it sooner rather than later, because Montrose cannot be trusted right now. And that is it. Those are my thoughts. I'm reading my notes, because I take notes during the episode when I'm not riveted to the screen. But it's been really cool and really exciting. And what are your thoughts? Let's talk about this in the comments. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think the house is a portal? Do you think the Hippolyta is going to be brought into the fold in the next episode, or going to push her way and come storming into the fold, which that also might happen? What do you think is going to happen with Ruby? Are they going to be able to manipulate her, or is her strong mind going to win out? Because I do think she has it. I just know she's pissed. And so when you're pissed, sometimes you can be easily manipulated. But let me know. What do you think? How did you like the episode? Was it stressful for you? It was the good stress for me. I enjoy a good adventure movie for sure. And the Goonies-esque scene just made my day. So what are your thoughts? Let me know. Yeah, let's talk about it in the comments. And I look forward to the next time that we can talk again about Lovecraft Country or anything else. Bye.